Why God likes gold. Why does God like gold and silver? Gold is mentioned 417 times. Silver is mentioned 320 times, and the word money 140 times. Not once does the Bible mention paper currency, and today we're going to find out just why God likes gold. Let's get started. Welcome back to Reason for Truth, everybody. I'm your host, Stevie Garofalo. The Reason for Truth, where the truth comes first, the reasons come last, but we're always and constantly learning, because when we stop learning, we stop teaching, or at least stop teaching well. And this is its very important subject. We already had the intro. We've had part one. Now we're hitting part two, just why God likes gold, because it's his money. In a LinkedIn article, which I thought was fantastic, it's entitled God Likes Gold: The Uses and Value of Gold in the Bible. It's by Arthur Leger, Leger. He's VP of Exploration at Atoka Gold Corp. And that was published January 17, 2017, going back a few years. You might say, well, he's in the gold business. Well, you could take that for what it is, but let's see what he has to say about the scriptures, and then you could take it back and see if you think he's distorting the scriptures or not. I don't think he is. I think he's spot on. But Leger speaks of gold as God's money, and he starts by addressing the value of gold in biblical times. Gold's value in biblical times, he writes, its biblical records indicate that gold and silver were the first and oldest form of money. Remember, one thing that I remember from a class I did years ago was that, mankind found all kinds of metal, bronze and steel, or, iron, I should say, and copper and gold and silver. And those two just naturally rose to the top as currency, gold and silver, because they were so rare, but they were so beautiful. Gold just never loses its texture. That's why it's number one. And silver was the most commonly used. And, as is today, gold would be more used or silver would be used more frequently for just small purchases than gold, because it's a lot less expensive and just more available at the moment. The first mention of gold in the Bible is in Genesis chapter 2, verses 12. King James Version says, "And the gold of the land is good." And he goes on to say that gold is mentioned 417 times. Remember, again, silver 320. So what's the importance of all that? Well, listen, gold and silver are asserted as real wealth. That's the point. Gold's rarity, even in biblical times, gave it a monetary value, which is made it very useful in commercial transactions, and even even in commercial use or industrial use. Your cell phone probably has a couple ounces of silver in it, believe it or not. And the problem with silver, though, is that silver can't really at this time be economically extracted from electronics, computers, phones, or whatever, because it's so cheap. What is it, roughly $23, $24, $25 an ounce? It costs too much to get it out. Now, if silver went to $100 or $500, it would be worth the exercise of going through these electronic components and pulling the silver out. And perhaps they'll be stored somewhere to do that at a future date. But you see, if you have a piece of jewelry that's a gold ring, you could always melt it down and make a coin out of it. And gold is used as well in electronics. I would say silver, its primary, really, because it's such a superconductor of electricity that it's used. That's part of its value. So it's also seen, gold and silver is seen as a measure of wealth and prominence. The color and luster of gold is unmatched. I mean, think about it. You see these shipwreck shows. They go down, they find these gold bars from 200 years ago, and what they still look like. They still like gold bars, right? Still shine. And so the color and luster of gold and its resistance to oxidation or tarnishing makes it valuable in jewelry and all kinds of things. So the Bible often mentions kings and queens paid in gold and silver. Not only are gold and silver indications of wealth, but in both the Old and New Testament, owning gold is also compared to acquiring knowledge, he writes, wisdom and faith, which is far more valuable. He makes a good point in that. I think this man, this Leger guy, is a pretty wise guy. I don't think he's in it just to make money. I think he believes in what it is that he's doing, and he's doing a good added value thing. Okay. Gold used in construction of the tabernacle. We see that in the Bible, Solomon's temple. The tabernacle in Exodus 25, 8, and 11. God commanded Moses to have the Israelites build a tabernacle, a portable structure, also called the sanctuary. And for him, it's estimated that the tabernacle contained 2,204.85 pounds of gold. So that's really 7,584.38 pounds of silver as well, and 5,338 pounds of copper. That's according to the Easton Bible Dictionary. Solomon's Temple, okay, historians estimate Solomon's Temple was made up of over 3,000 tons of gold. That's a lot of gold. This amount of gold was recorded in talents, and which one talent is equivalent to 75 pounds. And ancient Israel must have discovered that an alloy had to be mixed with gold to harden it. That's why my mom always told me, if you were going to buy, I don't really wear jewelry, but if you're going to buy jewelry, don't really buy 18 karat. It's too soft. It'll break off or it'll dent really easy. 14 karat still is shiny because the higher the carat, the shinier the gold because there's more gold in it. The less they add more things into it, it loses its shininess, but it's harder. By the way, if you want to know, the American Eagle gold dollar or gold coin is less gold than the Canadian gold. All right, it's like the Canadian gold's 99 point something, but it's very valuable still, the American Eagle, compared to the Canadian, many others. But it's interesting how it's very valuable. It still has a little less gold because it just doesn't dent as easy. It doesn't get binged up. Very interesting. But it was also metal. Listen, metal and gold was even used for construction and weaponry. You see that in 1 Kings 10:16. King David set aside 100,000 talents. That's 7,500,000 pounds of gold. Can you imagine that? Man, I could retire big time on. Well, we could all retire on that. And 1 million talents. It's 75 million pounds of silver for Solomon's temple. So 1 Chronicles 22:14 talks about it. He writes that gold priced when he wrote this article was $1,203 an ounce. That wasn't too long ago. What was that? 2017. So people say, gold doesn't increase or keep its value. It's just a little over 19, maybe 1919 when I checked it yesterday. But the gold in Solomon's Temple would have been valued at about $144 billion at $2,000 an ounce. That would be roughly estimated around $2.5 billion. Wow. Ledger goes on to address the fact that gold has always held its value throughout human history, and that this is tangible wealth that has always been based upon the possession of gold and silver. So throughout recorded history, gold and silver have been considered actual wealth as opposed to currencies made of variable destructible objects such as tobacco, whale's teeth. You've seen that in some countries, cattle, seashells. You go back to some of these countries and maybe in the Caribbean or in Africa, and some really remote people will still trade in seashells and whale teeth and things like that because that's just what they chose. But today, most of the developed world is just fiat currency that's been produced and overproduced. So for all citizens, gold and silver have been associated with wealth, stability, and power. And in biblical times, gold primarily purpose was, it should be for storage of wealth, right? Store of value. Silver's purpose, the same thing, okay? But also for daily trading. Ledger says that gold is still valuable today, and he points out that the Bible reflects gold as an important substance in heaven. He points to Revelation 2:21. It says, the great street of the city was of pure gold, like transparent glass. How beautiful. In conclusion, Ledger says, in today's economic system, physical gold and silver are mostly irrelevant. They are. Most people call gold, people who believe this, most people say you're a gold bug. Only people that believe that gold is really God's money and that it's a true store of value internationally are called a bug, gold bug. Think about it. Only people called bugs. Is that politically correct? I don't think it really matters at the end of the day. Not one currency uses gold standard to restrain its government fiscal irresponsibility and monetary stability. It's protection from the possible potential hedge against inflation as a part of the portfolio diversification. No, they don't do that. And each person should consider two primary reasons for at least having some gold and silver. Number one, he says, coins or bars of these metals have durable, tangible, and intrinsic value as a financial instrument, although they do not bear any interest. And that's why a lot of people don't like to invest in them. They're like, well, it's not making me any money. So it's as an asset value, each coin does not correspond to an obligation to another party, which may be defaulted, though. That gives it security. Number 2, precious metal coins are private and anonymous. Note that in the U.S., if purchased with cash, money orders, or cashier's check, or traveler's check, and a purchase of at least $10,000 is made under that, the coin dealer must report it if he goes over that to the government. Italy's financial crisis, by the way, I talk about Italy a lot, with an example of what happens when the government expanded without restraint of fiscal prudence. This happened again. He's writing this in 2017. They've gotten that a lot straightened out since then. But a definite financial destructive trend has developed in that fiat currencies continue to rob the wealth of those who are not protected by solid treasure of gold and silver. How are they doing that? Through printing money, adding it digitally. So listen, you want to make sure that you understand gold, and this is part 2. We got one more. We're going to talk a little, getting more biblical with each episode here. But you want to check out Arthur R. Ledger. That's Leger. He's VP of Exploration at Atoka Gold. I think he's still there. As Ledger leaves us with a verse. This is what he leaves us. Genesis 2, and he says this, "And the gold of the land is good." Genesis 2:12. Listen, only God is good, and everything he created is good. God created gold as his currency, and that's why gold is good. And that's all I got to say about it for today. Hey, make sure you do a couple things. You want to go and hit that subscribe button. Bam! Knock that thing out. Hit that alert bell. Then you're not going to miss episode 3 or any of these. And then I'll see you at my community. Join today, StephenGarofalo.com. Join for free if you feel you want these episodes 1 to 3 days early. Hey, it's only $5 a month. And at the end of the day, we do appreciate that support. But you could join without that just at StephenGarofalo.com. No cost. So God's blessings to you. I'm your host, Stephen Garofalo, and this is your Reason for Truth for today.